afternoon. I'm Anita Huberman. I'm CEO of the Board of Trade, and I'm an honorary captain of the Royal Canadian Navy as well. I acknowledge today that we're on the traditional territory of the Tawasin First Nations and the unceded territory of our Coast Salish peoples, specifically the Kwantlen, Katzie, and Semiahmoo First Nations. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us on such short notice. The BC budget was delivered this past week, and we have a very unique opportunity to dialogue with BC's finance minister. And events like this simply do not happen without sponsorship. And so thank you so much for sponsoring this event at the last minute. We very much appreciate your support of Surrey's city building business organization. Our co-presenting sponsor is the Vancouver Fraser Port Authority. Our supporting sponsor is Kwantlen Polytechnic University, and our community sponsor is the accounting firm of Manning Elliott LLP. Our business and international trade center sponsors are the law firm of Fasken, the Chambers of Commerce Group Insurance Plan, represented by SNF Benefits, and BDC, the Business Development Bank of Canada. Thank you so much for your support. On the call this afternoon, we have some government representatives and special guests joining us. The Honourable Harry Baines, BC's Minister of Labour, MLA for Surrey Newton. The Honourable Bruce Ralston, BC's Minister of Energy, Mines and Petroleum Resources, MLA for Surrey Whalley. Gary Begg, MLA for Surrey Guildford. Representing Shirley Bond, MLA from Prince George, Valemount, and interim leader of the official opposition is Ryan Mitten. Jagrup Brar, MLA for Surrey Fleetwood. Representing Trevor Halford, MLA Surrey White Rock, is Effie Cerise. Rachna Singh, MLA for Surrey Cloverdale. City of Surrey councillors Linda Annis, Brenda Locke, and Stephen Pettigrew. City of White Rock councillor Scott Christensen. City of Pitt Meadows councillor Bob Meechan. And the president and CEO of the BC Chamber of Commerce, Fiona Famuluk. Thank you so much for being with us. Ladies and gentlemen, all attendees are muted. If you do have a question, please put it in the chat function of the Zoom technology, and I will get to your question after the presentation is over. If we're unable to answer your question, an email response will be sent to you following the event. Ladies and gentlemen, just a reminder that the Surrey Board of Trade is Surrey's city building business organization, where we support business, bring business into the city. We are the top 10 largest chambers of commerce, boards of trades in Canada. And ladies and gentlemen, I also wanted to let you know that we have the only pandemic rapid response business center supported by the BC government, where we created Canada's first COVID-19 playbook for business to support business today and beyond the pandemic. We're part of the BC government Premier's Economic Recovery Task Force. We're one of 9 organizations, and we're part of Minister Kahlon's COVID-19 Industry Engagement Table, where we dialogue every couple of weeks with Dr. Bonnie Henry to identify gaps and opportunities during the pandemic. And we have a direct line into the Prime Minister's office to do the same thing. We're here for you. If you need anything, just let us know. Check us out at businessinsurrey.com. And now, ladies and gentlemen, as I mentioned, we are Surrey's city building business organization. Surrey is going to be the largest city in British Columbia by 2030. And a very important economic ingredient is our port. And so to speak a little bit from the Vancouver Fraser Port Authority about the economic importance of the port is Naomi Horsford. Naomi, over to you.
Thank you, Anita, and thank you to the Surrey Board of Trade for hosting today's event. My name is Naomi Horsford, and it's an honor to be here on behalf of the Vancouver Fraser Port Authority as you welcome Minister Selina Robinson to this virtual town hall. The Port of Vancouver is Canada's largest port, supporting 115,000 supply chain jobs across the country and connecting Canadian consumers and businesses to more than 170 countries around the world. Over the last year, the global pandemic has underscored the importance of the port to the well-being of Canadian families and businesses from coast to coast. Through this pandemic, the port has been resilient, and many partners in the supply chain, including longshore labor, terminals, railways, truck drivers, and others, have worked tirelessly to keep Canada's trade moving, supplying products to people and businesses to our region and across the country, while continuing to connect Canadian exporters to markets around the world. Last year, we saw trade through the port grow overall by 1%. And while some sectors such as cruise and automobiles had a very challenging year, other sectors continued to grow. For example, containerized trade set new records, supporting the import of consumer goods, as well as Canadian exports of food, agricultural products, forest products, and many others. An interesting fact about the container sector, 25% of the value of agricultural products exported through the port are shipped through containers. We also saw a record year for grain exports with a staggering 24% increase in volume. Truly Canada feeding the world. As we look towards economic recovery from this pandemic, the port is and will continue to play a major role in supporting well-paid jobs for residents in the Lower Mainland. In partnership with industry and government, the Port Authority is currently investing approximately $1 billion in trade and transportation infrastructure projects across this region. These projects will increase port capacity, reduce impacts on communities, and create jobs. As we expand trade, we also have a long history and a strong focus on reducing the environmental impacts of that trade. We continue to strengthen our Eco Action program, which rewards ships that meet voluntary environmental best practices that reduce air emissions. This is just one example of how the Vancouver Fraser Port Authority is delivering on our mission to make the Port of Vancouver the world's most sustainable port. With that, it is my honor to introduce Minister Robinson and to learn more about the province's vision and plans for British Columbia. Minister Robinson was first elected as MLA for Coquitlam-Maillardville in 2013. She previously served as the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, where she led record housing investments through the 10-year Homes for BC plan to build housing of all types in communities throughout the province. She also managed significant capital investments in public transit through her work with the Mayor's Council and TransLink, and worked tirelessly to support local governments through the pandemic. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome the Honourable Selina Robinson. Thank you.
Thank you, Naomi. Really, it was so lovely to see you, even if it's just on the screen. And thank you, Anita. Thank you to the Surrey Board of Trade for having me here today. And I'd like to begin my remarks by letting you know that I'm coming to you from the traditional territories of the Lekwungen peoples, the Songhees, and the Esquimalt First Nations. And I'm glad to have the opportunity to speak to you today after releasing our budget just a couple of days ago. You'll all know, that this has been a pandemic budget. We've all certainly been feeling the impacts. I know that many of you watching today are watching from your homes because we have to work differently these days. We faced many challenges in this last year, and we've also adapted in so many ways. When I think about how I'm even speaking to you today, if you would have told me, 18 months ago that we would be doing it, presenting a budget this way, I don't think I would have believed you. And we still continue to feel the effects. We have adapted, and it has been impactful. It's been absolutely incredible and has changed how we do business, how we connect with each other. But it also has shown so much resilience. in our ability to adapt, because I think we need to remember that we have adapted. And I'm coming to you from a studio that didn't exist here a year ago, and here it is in the legislature. We have a studio, but there's also some real good signs about what's happening, on the employment front. We are seeing, employment now not just come back, but supersede what was back in pre-pandemic times, back from February. And so that tells me that there's really hope for tomorrow. This budget responds to the impacts of the pandemic, for today's challenges, and it prepares us for the challenges ahead. Because you know what we're doing? We're investing in healthcare. Because if you don't have your health, you don't have anything. And if you don't have healthy people, you can't have a healthy economy. We're also strengthening the services that we all depend on. And we're building a bridge to recovery into the better days that are ahead. The pandemic, it will end. And when it does, BC will be ready for the opportunities that come with recovery. And that's a powerful testament to the incredible resilience that people show, that businesses have adapted and have been resilient, and they've pivoted. They've done amazing things. And we've seen this in our communities. This is what we're about here in British Columbia. So before I get into Budget 2021, I'd like to just share with you a couple of broader economic slides. This slide here shows private sector growth forecasts for Canada and the provinces. All provinces saw significant impacts last year, as shown on the chart on the left. And a recovery is expected for this year. And in recent weeks, private sector forecasters have updated their near-term economic growth projections for BC to show a stronger recovery. The projection shows BC's recovery is expected to be better than the national average. And this too speaks to our resiliency here in British Columbia. It speaks to our economy, and that despite the challenges of this last year, our strengths remain. We enjoy abundant natural resources. We are a gateway to Asia, and we have highly skilled people here in British Columbia. Now, Budget 2021 is focused on on the province's response and recovery from the effects of COVID-19. And our budget deliberations took a very thoughtful approach to make sure that government continues to protect the health and safety of British Columbians, to support people and businesses as we continue to manage through the effects of the pandemic, and to do the important preparation work so that we can be ready to seize the opportunities that recovery holds. In addition to new permanent investments of $8.7 billion over the fiscal plan, we have also included significant pandemic and recovery contingencies, which is absolutely essential to keep us nimble and responsive to your needs and to the needs of all British Columbians. It will also ensure that the province can continue to deliver COVID-19 response and recovery measures and help us manage the ongoing uncertainties and risks that have come with this pandemic. This budget also makes significant new capital commitments in the health and transportation and education sectors. Things like hospitals and schools and post-secondary facilities and transit and roads and other infrastructure around the province is expected to be a record $26.4 billion over the fiscal plan period. And I know that typically, finance ministers will often take a very narrow view of business when presenting to boards of trade. But I also know that it's important to talk about the health and well-being of our friends and our families, given the impact of the pandemic. And we also need to recognize that it's had, a negative economic effect on our business because, people are afraid and they're worried for their safety. We also need to make sure that there's support for people when they need it. Because if you don't have healthy people, if you don't have healthy communities, you can't have a healthy economy. And this last year has highlighted that importance of strong health and mental health services and just how important they are. And as more and more people get vaccinated, we can see a light at the end of the tunnel. We're just not there yet. And keeping people safe continues to be our top priority. Budget 2021 provides more than $4 billion in funding for health and mental health services to continue to protect people from COVID-19 and expand the services that people rely on. This includes the continued support for the largest ever vaccine program in BC's history to ensure that every British Columbian can receive their vaccine and we can get back onto the road of recovery. Now, Budget 2021 also includes funding to reduce wait times for surgeries and give patients faster access to the help that they need. There's support for seniors in this budget as well. They've had an especially frightening and lonely year with improvements in long-term care and home care as well. Budget 2021 includes the largest investment in mental health services in BC's history, which will help build out a network of mental health supports for youth through schools and new Foundry centers. As well, integrated youth and child supports in 15 more school districts. We're also improving access to and quality of mental health services throughout the province. We're improving mental health and addiction services for Indigenous peoples, increase access to a full spectrum of substance use treatment and recovery services, including funding for opioid treatment, and help get more people onto the path of recovery with new substance use treatment and recovery beds. Budget 2021 will also focus on building other critical health infrastructure with $7.8 billion in capital investments to support major construction projects like new and upgraded hospitals, and I know you're going to want to hear more about that in a bit. As you know, every day, people and businesses across our province are working hard to fight the virus and get life back on track. We are working with you. We are continuing to invest in services that people count on. The budget increases funding in the K-12 education sector to support our children, our teachers, our schools, and our families. And it includes free public transportation for children 12 and under in time for classes this September, which means for families in Surrey, relying on TransLink, they're going to save up to $672 per child per year. Now, not everyone was affected by the pandemic in the same way. And just as Dr. Henry would say, we're all in the same storm, but we're in different boats. We know that for people who are already experiencing economic and social barriers, the pandemic presented an additional barrier to getting the help that they need. That's why Budget 2021 funds the largest permanent increase to income and disability assistance rates ever. For low-income seniors, we doubled the senior supplements rates, the first increase in the history of the program, which started back in 1987. Our government is also continuing to support people experiencing homelessness by providing more than 3,000 temporary shelters and hotel spaces for people experiencing homelessness. This comes with meals, support staff, and equipment needed to maintain safe shelters. These investments, all of these investments, will help us to continue to make progress towards meeting our poverty reduction goals of reducing the overall poverty rate by 25% and the child poverty rate by 50% by 2024. We know that quality, affordable, and inclusive childcare is critical to families, to communities, and to the economy. In 2018, we launched Childcare BC, to bring affordable, accessible, and quality childcare to families right across the province. Since then, we have funded the creation of over 26,000 new childcare spaces, with thousands more new spaces funded each year under the New Spaces Fund. Budget 2021 provides funding to create even more spaces, and it helps support the workforce behind the workforce, our early childhood educators. We are doubling their wage supplement to $4 an hour. It also includes 400 new spaces for the Aboriginal Head Start program, which provides culturally relevant childcare for Indigenous families. And we're doubling the number of children who can get care for $10 a day or less through the Universal Childcare Prototype program. We also are very excited to hear the federal government finally join with us in delivering a childcare plan, and that's great news here for British Columbia. Now, the COVID pandemic has contributed to the high activity we are seeing in the housing market. With more people working from home, the demands for more space has increased activity. And low interest rates combined with a low inventory of homes has driven up prices. However, we do expect some moderation in the market in 2022 as the recovery takes hold, and as all orders of government continue our combined efforts to improve housing affordability. We have worked hard to tackle the crisis by addressing speculation, reduced rent increases, and currently we have a rent freeze in effect here in British Columbia. We are also continuing work towards meeting our goal of building over 114,000 affordable homes over 10 years. We started that work back in 2018 and we haven't stopped. To date, more than 26,000 new homes have been completed or are underway. And Budget 2021 continues to fund new low and middle income housing units with funding to nonprofit providers and $1.6 billion of provincial capital investment. We are also providing $2 billion in additional financing to expand the Housing Hub program. This will help create an additional 9,000 new homes for families over the course of the next 3 to 5 years, on top of the 1,000 homes that have already been completed to date. And now a central commitment of our government is to make life more affordable for people. Budget 2021 focuses on investments that will ensure that no one is left behind as we continue to fight the pandemic and move into recovery. These investments build on previous measures taken to make a difference for people every day. This includes more affordable childcare that we're continuing to expand in this budget, the elimination of MSP premiums, the BC Child Opportunity Benefit that families started receiving just last October, but which will deliver full savings with this first year in 2021. The elimination of bridge tolls and student loan interest, and more affordable car insurance. These measures and those in Budget 2021 all contribute to make life more affordable for British Columbians. Now, Budget 2021 continues to provide measures to help businesses adapt and prepare to seize the opportunities that recovery will bring. We didn't wait to get supports into the hands of the businesses that needed help. And Budget 2021 builds on the supports we have continued to provide over this last year. And this includes the stronger BC tax incentive for employers that have hired or increased compensation in the last quarter of 2020 compared to the previous quarter. More funding for the Grow BC, Feed BC, and Buy BC campaigns. The PST exemption for select machinery and equipment to help business expand operations. And ongoing funding for the Small and Medium-Sized Business Recovery Grant Program. Budget 2021 includes supports targeted to the hardest hit sectors like tourism, arts, and hospitality. Support includes $120 million through Budget 2021 to support tourism recovery starting in 21-22, including support for major anchor attractions that help make British Columbia such a unique and fabulous destination. Additional funding for community destination development grants will also help communities prepare for future visitors through new tourism infrastructure like trails and airport improvements. We're also supporting 14,000 restaurants, bars, breweries, wineries, gyms, and fitness centers through the most recent health restrictions, through the Circuit Breaker Business Recovery Grants. We have been nimble through the pandemic in creating new supports quickly as they are needed, and we are adjusting our response as the landscape changes. This is exactly why we have built significant pandemic and recovery contingencies into this budget. The Circuit Breaker Business Relief Grant is a great example of this. The program was developed in less than a week. We will continue to get help out quickly to those who need it, when they need it. And we will continue to support businesses through this challenging time as we all prepare for a recovery. Now, our government has made reconciliation with Indigenous peoples a cross-government priority. Budget 2021 includes stable funding to support engagement with Indigenous peoples on a range of matters, including land and resource activities, as well as legislation and policy. We are also providing more funding to create more childcare spaces for Indigenous families, deliver the skills training initiatives that will lead to long-term employment for unemployed and underemployed Indigenous people. And racism has absolutely no place in this province and in its delivery of services. Our budget provides funding to implement recommendations from the In Plain Sight report, as well as provide cultural safety and humility training across health and mental health addiction services. We know the road to reconciliation and addressing racism is long. Our government will continue to work with Indigenous people and First Nation communities to create a stronger and inclusive BC for everyone. Now, climate change is one of the most pressing issues facing British Columbians. And we must make sure that a post-COVID future is a greener and more sustainable one. Clean BC is our plan to build a cleaner, more sustainable future. Budget 2021 includes an additional $506 million in new investments to continue to reduce emissions and create new opportunities and promote affordability. Budget 2021's investments bring the total funding for Clean BC to nearly $2.2 billion over 5 years. And by keeping people healthy and investing in communities, we can move toward a strong economic recovery that includes everyone. Budget 2021 includes record levels of capital investment with $26.4 billion in funding over 3 years. This is a $3.5 billion increase when compared to Budget 2020. These investments support a strong and sustainable economy with investments in roads, in transit, in schools, in housing, and in hospitals. Investments like hospitals in Cowichan, in Surrey, in Stewart Lake, Dawson Creek, and the replacement of St. Paul's Hospital. We're investing in the future of BC through the InBC Investment Fund. The fund will invest $500 million in high-growth potential businesses here in British Columbia and leverage investments from the private and public sectors to help businesses grow. The fund will be instrumental in helping promising companies scale up, and it will support startups anchoring talent and keeping jobs and investment here in places just like Surrey. And with that, I'd like to invite my colleague, Rachna Singh, the MLA from Surrey Green Timber, to come on up and say a few words. Rachna?
Thank you so much, Selina. It is always Selina does such an amazing job. Thank you so much. But I think we are talking about the best part now when we are talking about the Surrey investments. And so you have the slide in front of you. And so in Surrey, Budget 2021 capital plan includes $1.7 billion for the new Surrey Hospital and Cancer Center, over 1,000 new student spaces through the new South Newton Area Elementary and Tatalu Elementary, over 800 spaces in existing elementary and secondary schools, over 1,480 of housing complete or underway in the region, funding set aside for the Surrey Langley SkyTrain. And this government, I'm so glad that it recognizes how quickly Surrey is growing. And we are continuing to invest in Surrey to ensure that it has the infrastructure it needs to match that growth. We are continuing to move towards on major capital investments in healthcare, transit, and schools and housing. Budget 2021's capital plan includes 1,300 new seats for students through new schools like South Newton Area Elementary School. It also includes continued seismic upgrades to keep our kids safe, and over 800 additional spaces in existing schools. I'm proud to say that with these investments and the record investment in the last few years, last year was the first time in recent memory that the Surrey School District did not have to purchase portables. And that's, I think, it's a great news. Budget 2021 includes $1.7 billion for the new Surrey Hospital and Cancer Center. This is something that all of the Surrey MLAs, and my colleagues are here too, they have been advocating it for a long time. The new hospital will help better meet the needs of the growing and aging Surrey population. It's expected to open for patients by summer of 2027. And we have 1,481 homes underway or complete in the Surrey area, and more opportunities to come through our new investments in the housing hub. We have also set aside funding for the Surrey Langley SkyTrain project and are excited and committed to completing this line all the way to Langley. So great investments coming to Surrey. So happy for these. Selina, over to you, Minister.
Thank you so much, Rachna. So we have all been through a great deal, a year like no other. That's for sure. And I suspect that each and every one of us can think back to a moment in this last year when our world completely turned upside down. And I know that the challenge has been particularly acute, here in British Columbia. COVID-19 has challenged and changed British Columbians in ways that we never, ever could have imagined. The thing that I think has been most outstanding is just how resilient British Columbians are and have been, and how, as well, we look out for each other. I know that it's been that way, certainly in my community in Coquitlam, and I have no doubt it's been that way in Surrey and the surrounding areas there as well. I'm so proud of how well we have looked out for each other. We've certainly, seen it, whether it was the 7 p.m. cheer, or the fact that, for birthday parties, I've witnessed on my street with cars and balloons celebrating kids' birthdays, making sure that people felt celebrated. I've always been so impressed at how we come together when we need to. And we know that the recovery won't happen overnight, but by focusing on the things that matter most to people, we will get through this. We will get through the pandemic. We'll keep making progress. We'll get through to recovery, I have no doubt. Government continues to be here for British Columbians. Budget 2021 supports people now to stay safe and healthy, and into the future and into recovery, and a future with opportunities for everyone to be part of a strong and healthy economic recovery. That's what I'm looking forward to, and I also look forward to taking some of your questions. So thank you for having me here today.
Thank you so much, Minister Robinson, for your presentation this afternoon. Some questions that I have for you is, we noticed and observed that 377 million has been allocated over 3 years towards the Surrey Langley SkyTrain project, and that's for assessment, business planning. When do you think, or is there money allocated in this budget to ensure that shovels are in the ground soon? Can you tell me your perspective about that?
We're absolutely committed to getting this project done. We know how important it is to transit, to moving people through Surrey and into Langley and back and forth. And we know how what the opportunities are when you expand transit. They're incredibly significant. And that's why we've made this a priority. Of course, it has to go through business planning, working with the Mayor's Council as well. They're critical partners in this. We're engaging with the federal government. This is a top priority for our government. So there's certainly lots of work to do to get the business plan ready, but we're going to see this project right through.
Minister, childcare is an economic issue, and we're so pleased that this government recognizes that, as does the federal government in their budget announcement on Monday. There's 75 prototype sites, I believe, that have been announced throughout British Columbia. And you know the young population that we have in Surrey, 30% of our population under the age of 19, and childcare is an ingredient towards economic recovery. How many of those prototype sites do you think will be in Surrey?
Well, it's a great pitch. You've started already pitching Surrey. Good for you. And we're very excited about, continuing to grow out this plan. We've invested, since we formed government in 2017, billions of dollars into this plan. Really, there wasn't a plan before, so we're continuing to roll that out with thousands of spaces right around the province, and also working with so many great partners, because that's, I think, absolutely critical. The local governments have stepped up in a way that when I was in local government, it wasn't even a conversation, but now we have local governments just stepping up and saying, we want to build whatever it is, and we want childcare as part of it. You'll know that one of the things that we're doing with every capital project is we're saying, and where's the childcare? And where's the childcare in this project? If we're doing housing and we have a significant housing plan, the question is, where's the childcare in this project? Is there childcare? This is absolutely critical to build it out. And hearing from Minister Freeland that they were finally coming to the table with significant dollars, and I have certainly been advocating to her since I became the finance minister. I know that the previous minister, Carol James, did the same, and understanding the economic importance of having childcare, making sure that families are well supported, and that also remembering that we need to support the early childhood educators. They too, they're the workforce behind the workforce. Making sure that they are properly trained is also absolutely critical, because they are taking our most precious, valuable children, and making sure that they have a good start. And so we want to make sure that they're well trained. So all of these things are taken into account, including with our wage enhancement, making sure that they can make a decent living while they do this important work. All of this is about growing the economy, and I look forward to getting a bilateral deal done with the federal government so that we can move faster on our plan. That's was music to my ears when I heard it on Monday.
Minister, is the BC government considering bottom line erosion costs to businesses? There's rising costs from so many factors, the employer's health tax, the speculation tax. Would the BC government consider taking a look at all of the taxes as an opportunity towards cost savings for businesses, as well as maybe revenue generation for government?
So we always take a look at how taxes impact business decisions, and that's why we brought in the exemption on PST right now. I mean, it was an idea that the business community brought forward as a way to stimulate the opportunity to make equipment purchases, and that's part of helping to grow the economy. The other thing I just want to point out, and I don't know if I mentioned it, is the employment incentive program. We're starting to see some good pickup on this program, and starting to see a lot of business, increase their employees onto their payroll, which is good. And I'm really proud of the fact, and British Columbia has shown just how resilient it is, the fact that we actually have higher employment now than we did when the pandemic struck last March. And so again, that just shows us the resilience that people are demonstrating, and taking advantage of the opportunities that they can identify within their realm, their business realm, and making it work for them.
A question from the Center for Child Development. They'd like to know your perspective on investments with children with special needs and disabilities. Your government has indicated that no one should be left behind. And tell me your perspective about that.
Yeah. So for the first time in a long time in this budget, and it's not any headline, but just for an example, we're increasing funding to forget the name of the institute, but it's for children who are deaf and hard of hearing, and it's been well over a decade since they saw an increase in their funding to support children with their with hearing needs, with hearing loss needs, and making sure that they have funding. We're also increasing funding for Community Living BC so that we can provide more services to people with developmental disabilities. So we're identifying the places where we can continue to support people. We've made the biggest increase in disability assistance in this province's history as well in this budget. So we recognize those impacts, and I will also say that housing affordability continues to be the biggest challenge for people with disabilities, and so even though it's not identified as helping people in the disability community per se, affordable housing and all the investments we're making helps certainly those who have disabilities as well. So all of these things coming together is about improving quality of life.
Minister, I wanted to ask you your perspective about the public safety transition in Surrey from an RCMP to a municipal police force. We feel that it will have BC budget impacts. Do you believe that it will?
Well, that's an analysis that I leave up to my colleague Mike Farnworth as the minister responsible. And at this point, I haven't heard anything one way or the other from him. But I certainly invite you to engage with him about that. Make sure that he understands what you anticipate the implications are going to be, so that he's well informed as that process unfolds.
The pandemic, Minister, has shown us that we really need to tie industry needs to curriculum development. What's your perspective about post-secondary educational investments, apprenticeship training, and even really enhancing the trades program within British Columbia?
That's a great question, because it's one of the things that even pre-pandemic we were hearing a lot about: access to trades, finding people to do the work. So you can have all the investments that you want, but if there's nobody here to do the work, then you can't move forward. And so that's why in this budget you see significant resources going into trades training, going into reskilling, and really focusing on youth. Because if I could just take a moment, Anita, to talk about, we recognize that this pandemic hasn't impacted everyone equally. Some have, even benefited, we can argue. But really, it's been the youth, it's been women, it's been racialized people who have been most impacted, having it, economically more challenging. And if I can just focus on youth just for a second, typically this is a time in their life when you are most social. And of course, it's the worst thing to do right now. Or you work, and if you do have a job, you are typically in the service industry. Well, no one is hiring right now because it has been challenged and impacted severely by the pandemic. Or you worked in the tourism industry in the summer for a summer job, and that isn't happening. And so we know that youth have been more severely impacted. And so there's a whole focus in this budget on youth, getting them, co-op placements, investing in co-op placements, investing in summer work around parks and park development. We have 30 micro-credential courses that advanced education is going to be delivering so that people can pivot and find work that allows them to get into the workforce where it's needed. So whether it's construction or some other place where there's labor shortages, they can quickly move into that sector. So we are recognizing that our young people really have been paying a price here, and we want to make sure that we give them the supports that they need so that they can get back to a more normal existence. And if I can just plug vaccinate, that is the piece to economic recovery. The getting vaccinated is the most critical element we can do right now to move forward.
Absolutely. Say yes to vaccination. I wanted to ask you about the Prime Minister's announcement this morning about a shift, an ambitious goal towards climate change initiatives in the international summit that was taking place this morning with representatives around the world, including US President Joe Biden. How will that affect BC's climate change targets and budget goals?
Well, we have the most ambitious climate strategy with Clean BC of, of North America. So we're well ahead of the pack, and we're grateful that others are, again, joining in. And in this budget, we have $506 million dedicated to reduce emissions and create new opportunities. Really, I want to give a shout out to all of us, those that have transitioned to electric vehicles. We are the #1 jurisdiction in North America for electric vehicles, 54,000 EVs, which is something to be very proud of. So we're going to continue to build out the infrastructure needed, and we're continuing to support those who want to make the shift. We're also making sure that we have a relationship and a partnership with industry to reduce emissions through cleaner technology and increase energy efficiency. And so we've got money set aside for industry to incent industry to make the shift so that we can all have a cleaner future.
Can you talk about the resource sector within British Columbia? For example, there's 108 different Surrey businesses that support the mining sector. Talk about that as an engine towards economic recovery and positive impact to BC budget.
Yeah, well, I have to say that because we are so diversified and we have such great abundance in natural resources, we really do have an opportunity here in British Columbia, and recognizing that all of our instruments that we use every day and our phones all need stuff that comes out of the ground, and so working with Minister Ralston, who is doing an excellent job of working with the mining sector, making sure that we can get through permitting and continue to take stuff out of the ground that makes our lives better. And I want to just say how important it is through the resource sector, and we've heard again and again how important it is to act on reconciliation to get greater certainty on the land base. That is really, really important. So reconciliation is a critical component to our economic recovery and our economic strength. And that work is absolutely critical to access the land base. And I do want to say as well that we're seeing mills opening up for the first time in a long time. And that is also making a difference economically, that there's activity happening right across the land base that really facilitates our growth and poises us in such a great place to come out of this pandemic stronger than ever before.
Minister, can you talk about the arts and culture sector? Really, of course, we can't have events, but that sector really enhances the livability of every city's design principles. Talk about upcoming support, perhaps, to these types of businesses and organizations.
Well, we've already made some contributions and provided some support to those sectors with Amplify BC and providing them with funding recently, as well as we've got some funds for arts communities to take the fact that they're not active to purchase equipment, to build out performance areas so that it's ready to go for when we can do live performances. And I will confess, Anita, I really miss dancing in community with people in a public venue, and listening to live music, and so I really look forward to that. And again, we've set aside this pandemic and recovery contingencies, recognizing that when we're ready and we know that we have the opportunity to get back to a more normal engagement with each other, that we have the opportunity to support these organizations. And that's why our parliamentary secretary, Bob Deeth, who has responsibility for the arts, is engaging with these communities, making sure that we understand what the challenges are, what the needs are, so that we can be responsive and make sure that we're delivering the right amount of investment at the right time.
Minister, as you know, Surrey is a border city, and British Columbia is part of the Cascadia Economic Region. Tell me about BC's trade strategy and capitalizing upon that as an engine to spur growth and give revenue to the BC government.
Well, so yes, you are a border community, and I just got a note saying that back in January, our government partnered with the Washington Technology Industry Association and Global Affairs Canada to launch an accelerator program to help VR, AR, and voice-related startups expand into the American market. So there's lots of activity happening, certainly cross-border. Even though we physically can't go there, there's still lots of activity happening. But also recognizing, and I'll go back to the fact that mills are active again. The housing starts in the U.S. are significant, and the demand for our lumber is significant, and these are all good signs. And we're continually engaged. As well, we're working closely with our federal counterparts to advance and protect international trade interests, and so that work continues. That work has not stopped because of the pandemic.
Minister, can you tell us about investments related to the Massey Tunnel or Massey Bridge, whichever the decision is going to be?
Well, I'm really looking forward to the decision. The business case has been submitted to the ministry. They're doing their due diligence. I'm hopeful for a decision of a crossing shortly, and making sure that the bottleneck that is on both sides, in both communities, gets resolved as quickly as we can. And I'm hopeful that we'll have a decision shortly, and we can just get on with it.
Minister, thank you so much for your time this afternoon. Ladies and gentlemen, the presentation will be shared with you following the event, as well as the recording of this program. Thank you so much. Following this event is Surrey's Top 25 Under 25 Awards on our live YouTube channel at 5:30 p.m., celebrating Surrey's youth. Thank you so much for attending. Thank you so much to our sponsors, the Vancouver Fraser Port Authority, Kwantlen Polytechnic University. Thank you so much to Manning Elliott LLP. And Minister Robinson, thank you for your partnership to Surrey and the Surrey Board of Trade.